Hey there, Nation, and welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander Cheapskate, and we are back with another episode of Way Under Underhive. This series is dedicated to helping brand new players in Necromunda to create their very first starting rosters for the different gangs and cults within the Necromunda campaign system. And on today's episode, we're going to spend some time talking about Genestealer Cults. Specifically, we'll be talking about each of the individual fighters within the Genestealer Cults line. We'll also talk about some of the strengths and weaknesses of the gang overall. At the same time, help you to build your very first 1,000 point roster for your next campaign of Necromunda. So that being said, let's get this video on a roll. Alright, so let's go and talk about the Genestealer Cult strengths. First of all, they have access to Xenos powers. For most of the Cult Alphas, Hybrid Acolytes, as well as Neophyte Hybrids, you can purchase a third arm for them, which grants me an extra attack, also able to wield unwieldy weapons to be able to move and fire those at the same time, and in some cases actually have these guys equipped to shoot 3 pistols all at the same time. They are pricey at 35 credits per fighter, however, but it beats Suspensors when you're thinking about. A Suspensor costs you about 60 credits in order to be able to move and fire with a heavy weapon, but 35 credits for a third arm, nothing beats it. And at the same time, in close combat, this third arm also provides rending, and at the same time, using 3 pistols in close combat is a very excellent build. Another thing that's really good about Genestealer Cults is that they have excellent skill choices as well as combinations. They have access to shooting, combat, ferocity, as well as cunning, and because of that, it makes this gang extremely diverse. You can pretty much do everything equally well with the Genestealer Cults. From shooting and close combat are not going to be a problem for you guys. Now, at the same time, you also have some really good recruitment. In a Dominion campaign, you get a Neophyte Hybrid instead of Juice from your settlement whenever you roll a 6 in order to see if you recruit somebody. And if you roll two 6s, you actually get a earlier generation Neophyte Hybrid that has a third arm automatically, and you get that instead of a Ganger. So these are some of the strengths you get when you buy a Genestealer Cults gang. Now, let's go and talk about some of the weaknesses of a Genestealer Cult gang. So first of all, Hybrid Acolytes are very fragile. These are your champions of your gang. They only have 1 wound apiece, while everybody else is rocking 2 wounds from their champions as well. Not to mention, they're also toughness 3 only. So because of that, these Hybrid Acolytes are kind of like glass cannons. They can hit really hard, but they can't really take returning damage all too well. Another problem that you run into this gang as well is that because they have xenobiology with them in a campaign, they actually have some interesting rule handicaps to them in a Dominion campaign. For one, if you manage to capture a captive from an opposing team, you can't sell it to the guilders. Alright, so that's one of the major problems that you have for it as well. At the same time, your own fighters, when they get captured, your opponents can be highly motivated to sell them to the guilders because they get additional bonuses for doing so. At the same time, if you have to visit the doctor for a critical injury roll, you have to cost 3d6 times 10 credits, which is additional d6 more in cost. And the reason why is because it doesn't pay their doctor hush money to show the fact that these guys are alien hybrids. So those are some of the strengths and weaknesses of the Genestealer Cults. So now that we're done with that, let's go on and talk about your individual fighters. Alright, so the very first thing we're going to talk about is the Cult Adept. So you actually have one of 2 choices when it comes to your leaders in your gang, and both of them are actually both pretty well, depending on what you want to do with your group. So first of all, the Cult Adept, this is a leader, costs 120 credits for this fighter. They have 4-inch movement, as well as 4 up weapon skill and ballista skill. They got 3 toughness and strength, also got 2 for wounds, 3 up on initiative. They have 2 attacks, 3+ on leadership, 5+ on cool, 5+ on will, and 4+ on intelligence. Now, because of that, they're actually pretty good, all things considered. So let's go and talk about some of the strengths you can see with this fighter. Now, they're a pretty decent leader, and the nice thing about these guys is that they have access to weird cult powers that you can use, so you can use psychic abilities in a game. Now, unfortunately, their shooting and their combat isn't that good, but that's okay, though. The main reason why you're getting this character is for 2 reasons. One is because this leader is definitely cheaper than the alpha, and because of that, you can use that money for other things. And the second reason why I want to take this character is because they have access to mind control or hypnosis for their weird powers. Being able to make your enemies not do stuff at the same time even control your enemies is a very, very powerful ability. So depending on how you want to kind of play your overall game, whether you want to have a more supportive leader or a more combat-oriented leader, the Adept is an excellent choice. So your next leader choice that you have is also the Cult Alpha. Now the Cult Alpha comes out at 145 credits, so he's about 25 credits more than the Adept. At the same time, this guy's faster, he's got a 5-inch movement, he's got 3+ for his weapon skill and ballista skill, he's got a strength of 4, toughness of 3, 2 wounds. They have 3+ on the initiative as well as 2 attacks base. They actually have leadership 3 as well, cool of 5, a will of 5, as well as an intelligence score of 4 up. Not to mention, this guy automatically comes with an extra arm, which means he receives extra attack in close combat with rending. At the same time, all the benefits that come from that as well. So this guy is actually, you're really good at your shooting as well as your combat. Unfortunately for him though, he doesn't have access to weird powers off the bat, but at the same time though, having that ability to use 3 pistol power builds, either with plasma pistols or combat pistols, is extremely terrifying to behold. In fact, in my previous campaign, one of my friends, Scream with the Emo, he actually kit out his leader with 3 combat pistols, which were a combination of plasma pistols and stub guns with dum-dum rounds, and that guy was absolutely dangerous in the shooting phase as well as the close combat phase. Now this character is more expensive than the Adept, and like I said, it's more about how you want to have your leader. Do you want your leader having more of a supporting role or more of a combat oriented role as well? And because this guy actually comes with a 3rd arm, he could actually use heavy weaponry and be able to move and shoot it as a basic action, so that cannot be understated. So let's go and talk about your guys' champions real quick. These are your hybrid acolytes that cost 85 credits apiece. So let's go and talk about their stats real quick. They have a 4-inch movement allowance. They also have 3+ on their weapon skill, 3+ on the ballistic skill. They have 3 strength, 3 toughness. They only have 1 wound though, and that was one of the problems we talked about earlier. They have a 3+ initiative, 1 attack. They also have leadership of 4+, a cool of 5+, a willpower 7+, and intelligence of 6+ as well. Now let's go and talk about your champions a little bit more in detail. So when it comes to your hybrid acolytes, they're very, very fragile. And the reason why is because they only have toughness of 3, which is pretty standard throughout most of the gangs, but the real hindrance for these guys, they only have 1 wound. So because of that, most champions have 2 wounds in other gangs, so you do have to protect your hybrid acolytes. However, the best way to build these guys is to equip them as your heavy weapons operators in terms of shooting. Always equip these guys with a 3rd arm, so that way they could use that 3rd arm for carrying unwieldy heavy weapons and be able to move and shoot them as basic actions. At the same time, that 3rd arm can help them out in close combat as well. There's a couple of builds that you could do with these guys that make them really good. More often than not, you want to use them as your support base, where they actually use their ranged weapons and lend some suppressive fire for your gang. However, there is a build that you could do with these guys called the Ambushing Big Gun Assassin. Pretty much the idea is that you use the infiltrate skill that they automatically come with, well, not automatically come with, but you can equip them with the infiltrate skill and then give them a big gun, either a plasma gun or maybe a web gun, a flamer, something like that. So that way these guys can ambush your opponents and then open up on them as well. It's a really awesome shock value whenever you do that. So that's just one of the builds you can possibly do with these guys. So let's move on to your guys' gangers. You have 2 choices when it comes to gangers in your hybrid, in your cult. The first one is the Aberrant. This actually is considered a ganger class fighter. He costs 95 credits, and this guy is really, really good. Let's go and talk about his stats real quick. So first of all, he's got a movement at 5 inches. He's got 3+ for his weapon skills, 6+ for his ballistic skill. So his ballistic skill is horrible, but he's got 5 strength, 4 toughness, 2 wounds. He's also got a 5+ on his initiative because with 2 attacks for base. He's got a leadership of 9+, a cool of 4+, a willpower of 6+, and intelligence of 10+. So let's go and talk a little bit more detail about your Aberrant. These guys are your close combat killing machines. Alright, so they can't equip ranged weapons no matter what, and the reason why is because of the fact that they can't use them for one thing. And plus with the ballistic skill 6 up, you really don't want to equip these guys with ranged weaponry. However, if you manage to get specialists on these guys, you can actually spend your experience points exactly like you would for your normal specialist. At the same time, you can also put Nerves of Steel on these guys. But equipping these guys with Nerves of Steel is going to be very, very important because your opponent's going to be shooting at these guys whenever they can, because if you let these Aberrants get up close and personal, it could really cause a lot of problems. So putting Nerves of Steel is really good because all they got to do is pass a cool test and they don't get pinned. And they actually have a really cool, a good cool stat of 4 up, which means they rarely will ever they get pinned. Now, you might be tempted to equip these guys with the most powerful close combat weapons you can buy from your house list from the very start, but oddly enough, you don't want to do that. And right from the start anyways. And the reason why is because they already have a 5-up strength already as a base, and so because of, they also get additional attack by using that 3rd arm as well. So oddly enough, the best weapon to actually equip these guys is to use a fighting knife on them, oddly enough. And the reason why is because if you put 2 fighting knives on these guys, they get an additional attack for having an additional hand weapon in close combat, and you could use that with that 5-up strength and really cause some harm. Now later on in the campaign, you could of course buy more powerful weapons for them later if you so desire, but if you're trying to build up a gang and you're looking for some cost saving ways in order to get more points, that's one possible build for your Aberrant. Now lastly, we have your Neophyte Hybrid. This is the meat and potatoes of your guys' gangs. It's going to cost you 45 credits for one of these fighters. They have 4-inch movement, 4+ for weapon skill and ballistic skill. They have 3 for their strength and toughness, 1 wound. They have 4+ for their initiative, 1 attack base. They also have a 7+ for leadership, 5+ for cool, 6+ for willpower, as well as 8+ for intelligent. Now, when it comes to your guys, your gang must at least consist of 50% of Neophyte Hybrids, so you don't have to worry about juvies or anything like that, but you need to have at least half your gang be Neophyte Hybrids. Aberrants don't count as part of that, So you have to have more just as much fighters as you do with aberrants, your leader, as well as your champions. Now these guys are actually pretty cheap, all things considered. So you pretty much might as well want to equip them as such as well, because their costs so low. Now when it comes to their preferred weapon, you can have a choice, either last guns or auto guns. Last guns are usually the preferred build for most of these guys, because last guns has the plentiful trait, it's got a 2-up ammo save, and it's pretty decent, and you can also upgrade those weapons over time to make them more powerful. Auto guns, of course, are also pretty good because you do have that rapid fire ability, so it's more of a tactical choice on how you want to equip your Neophyte Hybrids. Do you want to use them more for long range shooting, or do you want to use them more for close support and assault? So that's the thing you want to work for. Now, Neophyte Hybrids do have the option to purchase a third arm for 35 credits for these guys. However, it's not really worth the cost, especially when you're starting off in the new gang. Just because you want to use these guys for your long range shooting and support attacks for the most part. Now, if you happen to get a earlier generation Neophyte Hybrid from your settlement, then by all means use it. But other than that, though, you really don't want to spend too much money on these guys. Now, the last member of your gang that we need to spend some time talking about is your Psychic Familiar. Your Psychic Familiar can be purchased for your characters, for your champions, as well as for your leaders as well. And these guys are extremely useful, and that's why we're spending some time talking about these guys. The main reason why you want to have a Psychic Familiar is because, one, they do give you buffs for your adepts to use their psychic abilities. They can reroll willpower tests in order to get those abilities off. But the real reason why you want these guys is because of their Omens ability. What ends up happening is that the owner of the Psychic ability, Psychic Familiar, if he gets a shot at, you can actually take a willpower test, and if you actually pass that willpower test, you can ignore getting hit. Pretty much the Psychic Familiar warns your character and they dodge the attack. And plus, you can stack as many of these familiars as you want to on your leaders and champions, which gives you additional buffs to protect your leaders and your champions from being shot at. Very, very powerful ability, so you definitely want to stack these guys up on your guys. Take as many of them as you can. Maybe not as the start, but as the campaign develops, you definitely want to include these guys in there as well. And so that's some of the information you have for the members of your gang. So now that we're done talking about the members of your gang, let's talk about some potential gang lists that you can start off with for your very first campaign. Alright, so the first list we're going to talk about is what I like to call the Versatile Build. It's going to cost you 1,000 credits for your starting of your campaign. And this Versatile Build is a really good balance between shooting as well as close combat. And it can pretty much do any job that you want to give this gang and they can accomplish it. This is a really good starting build for novice players, but at the same time it still allows access for more of the cooler stuff that you can get about Genestealer Cults as well. Now in this build you have two fire teams. You have a supporting element as well as an assault element. Your supporting element would consist of your first hybrid, hybrid number 1, and hybrid Acolyte number 2, as well as Neophyte number 3 and Neophyte number 4. And we'll talk about exactly what these guys are carrying on them later on the list. Now your Assault element will consist of 4 fighters. It consists of your Cult Alpha, as well as one of your Aberrants, as well as a Neophyte number 1, as well as Neophyte number 2. Now for your build in this list, your Cult Alpha is going to cost you 265 credits. He's going to be equipped with a Hazard Suit. He's also going to have a Hand Flamer for shooting, as well as a Power Hammer for close combat. He also has a Psychic Familiar, so that way he can protect himself from being shot at. And you give this guy the hip for shooting skills, that way this guy can move, shoot, and do hit and run attacks throughout the build. Now your next hybrid, we're going to go to your champion. You have 2 hybrid acolytes in this one. Your first hybrid acolyte is going to cost you 185 credits. This person is going to be equipped with a hazard suit. It's going to have a grenade launcher with a third arm as well as Overwatch. So that way they can do long range shooting with the grenade launcher, use their third arm for close combat, and use Overwatch, that way you can interrupt your enemy's movement phase. Being able to use a blast template weapon and be able to interrupt your opponent's activation is extremely powerful. That's why your second hybrid acolytes could be equipped exactly the same way. So that way you can be interrupting your opponent's movements and open fire with grenades, which is absolutely fantastic. Now for your close assault, you have your Aberrant. He's going to cost you 125 credits, and this Aberrant's going to be equipped with 2 fighting knives. So that way they have their 2 attacks base, they have their 1 additional attack from their arm that they have, and then at the same time they also have a knife as well, which gives them 4 attacks. And if they charge, they get 5 attacks at total with strength 5 and backstabbing rules. Super, super deadly in close combat. Now for the rest of your gang, you basically have 4 Neophytes. Neophyte number 1 and Neophyte number 2 are going to be equipped exactly the same. Both of them are going to cost you 60 credits. They're both equipped with hazard suits as well as autoguns. These guys are more like your close assault, close quarter combat shooters for the most part. Now your other 2 Neophyte hybrids, hybrid number 3 and hybrid number 4, they're both going to cost you 60 credits as well, and they're both equipped exactly the same. They both have hazard suits as well as las guns, and these guys will be doing more of your long range shooting and support that way for your suppression. And that is the Versatile build. Now the second build I have, I call your Xenos is showing build, is what I call it. It costs 1,000 credits for these guys. Now this build is more centered more towards close combat and assaulting for the most part. Now you're gonna have a cult adept in this gang for your leader, and your cult adept is equipped with more of an assault role and using a cult icon for larger group activations, which could be really important. At the same time, there is still a support as well as assault elements, but there are no heavy weapons in this build. For your assault element, you're gonna have your cult adept as well as four of your aberrants. You got 4 aberrants in this gang with your cult adept leading them. At the same time, you also have your support element, which consists of 4 neophytes. So let's go and talk about the list. Now your cult adept is going to cost you 200 credits. This person is going to be equipped with a hazard suit as well as an autogun. They also have a cult icon for larger activations, as well as a psychic familiar. This psychic familiar is going to help you out, protect your leader from being shot at the same time give you a reroll on your failed willpower test in case you don't do it. Now the skill you're going to give this guy is the Zealot telepathy weird power. It's a double action. It also has a continuous effect, and it says the mere presence of the adept can drive their cult brethren to acts of aggressive hatred. Once per turn, when another fighter from the same gang is within 9 inches of the adept rolls for a fight, basic, or a charge action, any dice that roll a 1 to hit may be re-rolled. So this could really give you some buffs, especially for aberrants. Now, like I said before, you're going to have 4 aberrants in this gang, and all of them are going to cost you 125 credits apiece. All 4 are equipped exactly the same with twin fighting knives. So like I said, you have that 4 attack base, 5 on the charge, with that strength 5, makes these guys extremely deadly in close combat. Now the other 4 neophytes are going to be equipped a little bit different. Neophyte number 1 is going to cost you 120 credits. This guy's going to be equipped with a hazard suit as well as a grenade launcher. They're going to have a last pistol as a backup weapon, and they're going to be your gang specialist. Now neophyte number 2 as well as neophyte number 3 and neophyte number 4 are going to be equipped exactly the same as well. All of them are going to cost you 60 credits. They're both going to be equipped with hazard suits as well as las guns. Now these neophytes will be doing the long range shooting as well with your specialist, lobbing grenades, pinning your opponents, using las guns to keep your enemy at bay, while your aberrants go into a flank led by your cult adept, and then just slaughtering guys in close combat. And that pretty much sums up your Xenos is showing build. Now the very last build I have is what I call the Victory Through Firepower build. It's going to cost you 1,000 credits for this third build, and this build relies heavily upon shooting. So at the same time, you have pistols as well as your seismic cannon in this build in order to use for close combat as well as assault. And just like the other games we talked about before, this consists of 2 elements, an assault element as well as a support element. So if you're a little bit more gun shy, you're a little bit more shy about close combat, you want to keep some distance to your opponents, this is the build you want to go for those guys. For your support element consists of hybrid acolyte number 1, hybrid acolyte number 2, as well as a neophyte hybrid number 1, and your assault element will consist of your cult alpha, neophyte hybrids number 2, 3, as well as number 4. And let's go and talk about exactly what these guys will be equipped with. Now your cult alpha is going to be costing you 310 credits, and the reason why is because this guy is going to be having a hazard suit as well as a seismic cannon. He's also got a psychic familiar to protect him from being shot at, as well as hip shooting. So because he has that third arm, he can move and fire the seismic cannon all in the same activation. And the seismic cannon is absolutely fantastic as a weapon because it gives you various firing modes that you could use for the weapon as well, and that's one of the real reasons why you're going to want to use that for the most part, because you having the ability to switch between your different shooting abilities for both close range as well as for longer range is just, absolutely fantastic. Now for your 2 champions, your hybrid acolytes, they're going to both be equipped exactly the same way. They're going to cost you 185 credits a piece. Both of them will have hazard suits, grenade launchers, third arms, as well as overwatch. So these guys can still fight in close combat. They can fire blast templates to interrupt your opponent's activations. Very, very powerful that way. You're also going to have another grenade launcher in this gang as well. That's where Neophyte Hybrid number 1 comes in. He's going to cost you 100 credits. He's going to be equipped with a hazard suit as well as a grenade launcher, a last pistol for a backup weapon, as well as a specialist. And he's going to be helping you launch those grenades from over distance and suppress your enemy. Now the other 3 Neophyte Hybrids, Neophyte Hybrid 2, 3, and 4, they're all going to be equipped exactly the same way as well. These guys are going to be equipped with hazard suits, las guns, as well as las pistols, so they can shoot at long distance, but at the same time they can throw it down in close combat if they have to. So there you guys go. This is the actual suggested builds for your starting rosters for your Genestealer Cults for your next Necromunda campaign. This is a very fun game to play with. There's some really interesting game mechanics as well. They're awesome at any kind of way you want to run them. If you want to run them as a shooting gang, as a fighting gang, or a combination of both, really, really awesome. At the same time, this could also potentially be a very cheap game to play, depending if you play Warhammer 40,000 or Kill Team. If you actually have a Genestealer Cults Kill Team or a Genestealer Cults Army, you could use your miniatures for both gangs. You could actually use these guys in 3 different gaming systems. You can use them for Warhammer 40k, you could use them for Kill Team, or you could use them for Necromunda. So if you're trying to save some money and you're willing to play some different games and you play Genestealer Cults already, that could be a huge value for you guys as well. And as you guys know, I'm all about saving money on this channel. So there you guys have it. This is our suggested builds for starting out your very first Genestealer cult. As always, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is valuable to us as always. Also check us out on Facebook, Instagram, as well as blogger.com for all the latest, greatest hobby news related to our channel. That's good to do for this one, you guys. We'll catch you guys next one. Peace out and stay classy.